We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with a bunch of huge news and speculation regarding the Fiend Bray Wyatt, who was seemingly let go and released by WWE at the end of July 2021. Now, as we have touched upon in many videos, Bray Wyatt's release was such a huge shock for most wrestling fans, with it simply not making any sense why WWE would get rid of one of their most popular and talented superstars, who was also a top merchandise seller. Things just did not add up, and not surprisingly, quite a large portion of WWE fans feel as though the Fiend Bray Wyatt's release is not actually real, or not in the sense that WWE made it seem. One fishy aspect about the Fiend's release is that WWE specifically mentioned Bray Wyatt on their official release statement on Twitter, which is just a character that Windham Rotunda portrays, and not the Fiend or even Bray's actual real name, which is Windham Rotunda, something WWE usually does when it comes to making official statements on releases and firings. As expected, lots of fans feel as though Bray's release is just a storyline on WWE's part, which is to make the Fiend Bray Wyatt's return to WWE even more special and momentous for fans. And by all means, if this was true, it would definitely be one of the biggest swerves WWE have pulled off in years, because while many did feel like Bray's release was very suspicious and kind of seems like a storyline, lots also believe that Bray's release from WWE to be very real, especially when WWE have fired so many talents this year in 2021, including some big names like Braun Strowman, which does make it more believable that Vince McMahon and WWE could be crazy enough to fully release Bray Wyatt. However, making it seem more like a storyline is the fact that Bray Wyatt still lists WWE on his Twitter handle, something that most wrestlers quickly change, which makes this all the more interesting. There is speculation among fans that Bray Wyatt is going to be returning to WWE in the very near future with an even scarier and intimidating version of the Fiend character, especially with Bray Wyatt teasing this new character on social media recently. According to a new backstage rumor, if the speculation of the Fiend Bray Wyatt not actually being released from WWE is true, the rumor goes on to mention that the Fiend would be coming back at the SummerSlam 2021 pay-per-view event this Saturday on August 21st, with one source noting that if the Fiend does not show up at some point on either the SummerSlam pay-per-view or the Raw episode after SummerSlam, then Bray's release is in fact real and he will not be returning. So by all means, this coming SummerSlam pay-per-view, and really the Raw following SummerSlam as well, are going to be huge tells as to whether or not Bray's release is real or not. Because the theory is that WWE wanted the Fiend Bray Wyatt's return at SummerSlam to be a complete surprise and swerve, hence why they did this whole Bray Wyatt release story a few weeks ago. Regardless, we have been told that if the Fiend Bray Wyatt is not actually released and is going to be coming back at SummerSlam, he would likely return during Alexa Bliss's match against Eva Marie and possibly interrupt the match to seek revenge on Alexa Bliss. With all this being said, let us know if you guys think WWE are going to shock fans by having the Fiend Bray Wyatt return with a new rendition of the Fiend character at SummerSlam 2021. Or do you feel like Bray Wyatt's release from WWE is very much real, and that fans have seen the last of Bray in WWE? Now, if Bray is actually gone for good from WWE, there's no doubt that the future is still very much bright for Windham Rotunda in wrestling, because there is no doubt that AEW would try their best in signing him, and given the fact that AEW is way more open to giving the wrestlers more creative freedom and control over their characters with better booking, Bray Wyatt would certainly flourish and do extremely well in All Elite Wrestling. So for Bray Wyatt's loyal fans out there, regardless of whether or not Bray returns to WWE, he will still be a huge part of wrestling for years to come. And there are pros and cons to Bray staying in WWE or instead joining another promotion like All Elite Wrestling, so whatever happens, it will work out well for Windham Rotunda. We now have some good news to share regarding Sasha Banks' and Bianca Belair's statuses in WWE heading into the SummerSlam 2021 pay-per-view event. Because as many of you are likely aware, we had reported a few days ago that there was great concern behind the scenes in WWE that the SmackDown Women's Championship match between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair was going to be cancelled at SummerSlam for undisclosed reasons, with some speculating that one or both of these superstars were affected by the worldwide health situation. But we now have a big new update regarding the situation, and by all means it is good news. According to PW Insider, both Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair have been cleared to return to action in WWE, and that they will both likely be appearing tomorrow night on the go-home edition of SmackDown before SummerSlam, and that their SmackDown Women's Championship match at SummerSlam will be going on as planned, which is fantastic news, as this was one of the major matches on the SummerSlam card, and the pay-per-view would have taken a pretty big hit if this match was cancelled. For the wrestling fans who are a bit angered that Goldberg has once again returned to take that main event WWE title spotlight, those fans can be a bit relieved with the news recently shared regarding Goldberg's status in WWE. Goldberg was recently a guest on WWE's The Bump podcast, and Goldberg revealed that he has 2 more matches left on his WWE contract, unless of course he and WWE work out some kind of a new deal. However, if Vince McMahon decides against re-signing Goldberg, which is a very likely scenario considering Bill cost the WWE millions of dollars for every appearance, Goldberg would only be wrestling 1 more match after his WWE Championship bout against Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam, so realistically Goldberg could be gone from WWE for good before year's end. Now, by all means, many of you are probably well aware that lots of fans view Jinder Mahal as being one of the worst WWE champions of all time, but in a recent interview, Jinder finally responded to these fans who claim that he is the worst WWE champion ever. Jinder went on to mention that during his WWE title run a few years ago, he was referred to being the experimental and unworthy champion, and downright the worst champ of all time, with Jinder then stating that he was not brought back to WWE to be the champion, and that he had to work hard and earn every opportunity that he was presented with, and that the whole India expansion theory is not even true, and that Jinder was rewarded with his WWE title reign because of all of his hard work. Let us know your thoughts on Jinder's sentiments when it comes to his WWE title reign, and do you feel that Jinder was as bad of a WWE champion as many fans made him out to be? Like we had touched upon in a recent video, there is a breaking new behind-the-scenes rumor that John Cena's in-ring career in WWE could be coming to an end following his major Universal Championship match against the head of the table Roman Reigns at SummerSlam 2021. With John Cena focusing his time on his budding career in Hollywood combined with his increasing age and unwillingness to risk injury while wrestling, which could seriously affect Cena's movie career, one of our sources has mentioned that John Cena has informed WWE that his last match could very well be against Roman Reigns at SummerSlam this Saturday, and apparently WWE are planning for Roman Reigns to decisively defeat John Cena at SummerSlam 2021 and retain his Universal Championship, with the storyline being that Roman essentially retired John Cena, which Vince feels will only add to Roman Reigns' reaction from fans as a monstrous heel by retiring one of the biggest legends of all time in dominant fashion.